championship record is equalled. Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time champion of the world. Woo! Woo!
That's for all the kids out there who dream the impossible.
Hello and welcome to the MTC, the home of Mclaren, and from where we'll be bringing you live and uninterrupted coverage of the 105th Indianapolis 500. It promises to be a special day for Mclaren as they have 3 drivers in the race and there's stories to tell from up and down the grid. But for now, sit back, relax and prepare to be entertained by the greatest spectacle in racing.
Crosses the finish line to win the 500.
At the stripe, it's Hornets wins. Hit the wall. Oh my goodness. Dan Weldon is going to win.
Yes, it's race day at Indianapolis for the 105th running of the Indy 500. And I'm delighted to say that I am joined here at MTC by Monaco podium sitter, ready with his trophy, Lando Norris, great to see you, and motorsport broadcaster Tom Gaynor. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I can't beat that, so quite the welcome.
Not many of us can, in fairness. I presume you've been sleeping with it, stuck by your side?
I've been trying to, but it's not the most comfortable thing to sleep with, it's true.
Now, how excited are you about the race today? Because we've got fans, the most since the pandemic, over 140,000, and we know that the pomp and ceremony over there is pretty much unrivaled.
Yeah, I think, you know, the Americans is well versed that the pomp and ceremony is special. The whole month of May, it's not quite been the month of May that we would have envisaged with COVID, but if you look at what the captain's done, Roger Penske, the governance in Indiana, to get fans here, to get this race underway and to do all of the things that they've done uninterrupted through practice. Qualifying last weekend was a magical spectacle, and, you know, going into the race today, the conditions are perfect for what I think will be a fantastic race.
Now, you were fairly busy last weekend, in fairness, but did you watch any of it? Did you manage to follow the progress of your teammates?
Yeah, little bits. I mean, I'm always trying to follow the guys, whether it's this week and the Indy 500 or all the other races they've done this season. When I can, the time zone is the only thing which often interrupts it, but whenever I can support them, I do.
Well, look, we're very grateful that you're here on your Sunday off. It's true commitment.
You know, I would have been sitting on my sofa at home watching anyway, so it's better that I'm here.
But why do you love it so much? What is the buzz about this race?
I mean, I don't know about the Indy 500. I think it's something I've always watched. It's something everyone talks about. It's one of the biggest races, you know, in motorsport together. So one day I might be able to find out.
Oh, you never know. You heard it here first. Yeah. OK, qualifying for it did take place last weekend. Let's remind ourselves as to what happened.
We go as fast as we can. 4 laps of our life. Are you ready?
I mean, it's fast, man. I mean, I don't think the TV makes it look as fast as it is. But if you stand in pit lane and you watch, it's like, even when I've watched the guys before me, I was like, man, this is fast.
Thinking about a lot, what to do. Well, I think I got to figure it out. Just have to see where I end up. Yeah, it's always quite eventful qualifying day here at the 500. Went out in the first run, which should be the optimal run because the track is the coolest.
starting 12th outside of row 4. Not a bad place to start. I'm not upset about it. I'm happy where we're at, honestly.
So nothing lost there. He holds that 24th position.
So qualifying went okay. We messed up a little bit at the gears in the morning, and we lost a little bit of speed there. But you know, in the afternoon we did another run, and we was pretty close. I think that's the speed the car has in single car runs.
So Scott Dixon puts it on pole, and a reminder of the front row. We've got Colton Herta and Rinus VK. Combined age of 41, which is the pole sitter's grand age. And then further down the grid, we've got 2 former F1 drivers in Marcus Ericsson and Alexander Rossi rounding out the top 10. A reminder then of McLaren's performance. Pato O'Ward in 12th, Felix Rosenquist in 14th, and Juan Pablo Montoya in 24th. The only woman on the grid, Simona Del Silvestro, is 33rd. A little earlier, I caught up with the McLaren team boss, Zach Brown. Here's what he had to say. Well, Zach, it's great to see you. How are you? How's the atmosphere out there? It looks magnificent, sunny, but probably a bit cold, and fans flooding in for the first time in a long time.
Hundreds of thousands of fans. It's awesome. You know, the Indianapolis 500, as we all know, is one of the biggest races in the world, biggest race in America. And yeah, it's great. You know, I think they have about 150,000 people here. You can feel the buzz. You can feel the energy. It's still quite early here. It is a bit chilly, but the sun is out. So I think it's going to be a very strong race, an exciting race today.
And how are your nerve levels?
Probably higher than the drivers. I've seen all 3 of our guys this morning, and the team. We did an early morning photo shoot. Everyone's ready. The cars look great. And but yeah, I always get pretty wound up come racing day. But I'm excited. 500 miles is a long race.
It sure is. Okay, tell us a bit about the collaboration between McLaren F1 and the Indycar team. How much do they actually do together?
Quite a bit. We have a little IndyCar team, if you'd like, inside the McLaren Technology Center. We have a bunch of people out here, and you can kind of break it into 2. We've got the technical side, which is about a dozen people that are helping on everything from tire strategy, tire management, aero, race strategy, and all the things you'd expect. And we use as much of our Formula One tools as possible. And on the commercial side, we have a lot of partners that are on our Formula One team that are also on our IndyCar team, and vice versa. And so we've got quite a big crew out here, if you'd like, from the marketing, commercial, social media side, because we think we're unique in that we have a Formula One and an IndyCar team. I think our fans really love that, and so we try and bring that story to life as well.
There's certainly a lot of passion and curiosity between the 2 genres of racing. How are the confidence levels your end? You must still be buzzing after that great performance in Monaco. And what are the chances of bringing that momentum into this weekend?
I think we've got 3 drivers capable of winning the race. I think we have 3 cars capable of winning the race. The only unfortunate part is I think there's about 15 other cars that are capable of winning the race. It's unbelievably competitive. So I think we've got a good shot. We need to have good pit stops, good strategy, stay out of trouble. And, you know, the Indy 500 is all about creeping up to be inside the top 10 with about 30 laps to go. And then it's game on. So it's a long race. You know, now with the reliability of race cars, you know, all kind of endurance racing, if you'd like, is now a sprint race. So it'll be very intense the whole time. We just need to stay out of trouble. And if we're there at the end, I think we got a good shot.
Talking of intensity, Lando spoke to us after the podium in Monaco and said he could barely remember it. It was just so full on, and obviously racing those narrow streets around the Principality, mentally very taxing. It's a similar kind of challenge, isn't it, for the Indy 500?
Very much so. I think Monaco is a track that you can really only make a mistake in one corner and get away with it. And in Indianapolis, you know, you're going 230 miles an hour. for about 3 hours, and there are no brakes. When I say brakes, there are brakes, of course, on the car. There's no kind of stoppage unless there's a safety car, as they call it out here, a pace car. And, you make a mistake at 230 miles an hour, you're going to get yourself in trouble very quickly. And even then, the drivers, to acclimatize, they're running 225, 230 miles an hour, then to slow down to come into the pits. It's not unusual to see some incidents coming in and out of the pits because your brain to go back down to 60 miles an hour for the pit lane speed limit in itself is a challenge, because the drivers, just like in Formula One, want to leave it as late as possible. So it's quite an intense race. I think it's very mentally demanding, and therefore that kind of takes its toll on you physically. So I think it's very much like Monaco in the sense of you just can't make a mistake or you're going to be in the wall.
Okay, yes or no, would you let Lando and or Daniel give it a go if they wanted to?
Of course I would. It's all about timing. But as we know, we like our racing, our different forms of racing. And I think Daniel and Lando both find IndyCar racing pretty cool. So obviously right now everyone's laser focused on Formula One that's in Formula One, and everyone in IndyCar is laser focused on IndyCar. But these racing drivers like to race all sorts of cars all over the place. So I guess never say never, as the saying goes.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for your time and all the very best today. We can't wait.
Thank you very much. And I say hi to all our McLaren fans, and hope everyone enjoys the race.
Well, we've been waiting a long time to get back to live sport, but just look at those scenes. Fans coming in. And Lando, we enjoyed it in Monaco. They're saying it's a 40% capacity, but that means 140,000 people in Indianapolis. But we certainly got a real buzz in Monaco, didn't we? It just makes such a difference.
It's huge, and it's one of the best things about Formula One, is seeing the fans, seeing their faces, the cheers, signing things, the flags. It's really awesome. So, seeing them back in America, they're very passionate. They love that kind of thing. So it's good to see them back.
It's great to make these comparisons with Monaco, and I'd like to just get your view, Tom, on the importance of qualifying, because certainly on the streets of Monte Carlo, it's crucial. Grid position is everything. How important is it at the Indy 500?
It's not as important. I mean, the last three winners have come from the top four starting positions, and since we had the aero change where they brought in this one aero kit for everybody, it's been a bit harder to pass. But this race day is going to be different to years gone by. It's much cooler. It's about 20 degrees cooler to when they practice. So a lot of the teams are going to trim out, and I think some of the challenges that we saw in Carb Day will prevail in the race. So teams trimming out, some still carrying plenty of downforce, and I think you'll see that speed differential because the cars that are trimmed out, they won't have as much drag, and so they'll be really quick in the straights. But then you have the tyre deck. There's always a compromise, Lando will tell you, with engineers, with performance, there's always a compromise somewhere. So I think the tyre degradation will be a challenge for those that do trim out. But I think for qualifying at Indy, you stay out of trouble if you're at the front, and the big challenge here is the first 150 laps. Stay out of trouble, and then go for the checkered flag in the final 50.
Okay, well, the McLaren boys are slightly further back down the grid. What did you make of your teammates' performances? Obviously, a double winner here for Juan Pablo Montoya. 45 years old, he's doing pretty well.
He is doing well, and I met JPM a few times before, and he's a great guy. So. I think from what, we had a few calls, and we had one in Monaco, and from what they say, like you said, Tom, that it's not all about Saturday. Oh, Saturday, it's qualifying for us. It's not all about the qualifying side of things for them. It's a very long race, and it's about being there in those last few laps. So they think they have a good race car. They're confident in that. They think they can come through the pack today, which is going to be good to see. Put on some action for us to watch, but we'll find out soon.
Now, Pato O'Ward has won already this season, Texas, race 2.
Yeah.
He is going to be getting a test in Abu Dhabi. Does that mean a kind of quid pro quo? Are you going to get his car? Because Zach said you can.
We can do a swap. It does look a beautiful car, doesn't it? So I would love to try something different, Maybe we can do it when we're out in Kota for the race. That'll be pretty cool.
Would you go for a road course or an oval?
Road course, 100%. ovals is not going to be the first thing I test an IndyCar on, that's for sure. So eventually I would love to. On the simulator I've done a few oval races and things and I really enjoy it, but very different to what I'm used to. So I'll stick to a road course and then maybe progress to an oval.
Now, a quick word on the milk consumption. Now, I know you're a bit off it because it's fattening and, you know, you need to keep trim. But you do get, famously, to choose your choice of milk. And which would you go for, if calories were no object?
If calories are no object, JPM, I think, is a very clever guy, you know. He may be 45, but going for the chocolate milk, I think, was a very wise decision. Treating himself handsomely, but I don't mind. Normal milk, you know, not almond milk. That's not for me.
OK, let's head up to our commentators then. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell and Paul Tracy. Take it away. Well, Lando, let's talk about the Brits in the field. Further down the order, Jack Harvey, the top of the three of them. Jack Harvey, Max Chilton and Stefan Wilson. What do you make of their chances?
I think they have all the chances. I know Chilton's done this a lot. He led the most laps, I think, a few years ago. Jack's been very competitive this year from what I've seen the few races. Just been a bit unlucky. So I think they both have a great chance. I know Jack personally very well. And he's a wonderful guy, a great driver. So I believe he can do well if just things come together for him. But it's a long one, so you know you need everything to really piece together well. And Jack beat Carlos Sainz to the F3 title. He did. So back in the day. Good calibre there. And of course his teammate Helio Castroneves is going for that record-equalling 4th win. What are the chances of him doing that? Yeah, the fans would dearly like to see Castroneves. Spider-Man, they call him in the US, because he climbs the fence if he wins, which is a spectacle we've not seen for quite a while. I mean, but going back to Jack, I mean, I think Jack's, OK, not in qualifying, but Jack had a real challenge in qualifying. He had that delamination of the right rear, a tyre situation that we'd never seen before at Indianapolis. So he didn't get the best of running in qualifying, and he's got the car to be there. He's been there and thereabouts all year. It's his first full season in IndyCar. He's had his knees and elbows out, upset a few of the front runners. And I think you'll see Jack, I mean, I spoke to him this week. You'll see him going off strategy quite early, I think. And he's going to try and push to the front of one of the groups that's off strategy. And I think if he can get to one of the front, to the front of one of those groups, he's going to be a real thorn in the side and may find himself up the front. How difficult, or indeed easy, do you think it is for a Brit to go over to somewhere that's so sort of culturally important in the United States? I mean, I've talked at length with Max Chilton about it, and he's taken to it so well. He loves the energy of racing over there, and he loves oval racing, full stop. I think it's definitely not going to be easy, but you can, I think, very quickly, if it goes well, gain a lot of the fans and gain a lot of respect. It's going to be tough, like you said, attracting those fans, and there's different characteristics of people there. But if you can put on a show and you can do well like they've done, or like certain other drivers have done, not just from the UK, but like Wickens did when he joined. Come in and you can perform. You can get a lot of support from the American fans, which is pretty awesome. I think Stefan's really embraced that. Stefan Wilson, he's lived there. He's really embraced the American culture. Talking about Jack, he's been walking around in his Lincoln City football shirt because he's really gunning for them this weekend. So I think I nearly wore my Brentford one today, actually. OK, let's head back to our friends at NBC then. It's Mike Tirico and Danica Patrick. Wow, incredibly moving to see that piece on Dan Weldon, Tom. I remember where I was when we found out the news. I was with Anthony Davidson, who was a very good friend of his. We were out in Japan for the Grand Prix. And it was one of those moments, wasn't it? Because he'd had such an incredible year, and that race itself, he was going for, that $5 million reward for coming from the back. And it was just sort of epitomised the highs and lows of motorsport. I think he should never have been a free agent going into that year. Obviously, he took the Indy 500 ride with Brian Herter, and that was an iconic race in itself, with JR crashing at turn 4 on the final corner, and Dan, that memory of him winning that 500 is etched on the forefront of everyone's mind. And then to go to Vegas, try and be the $5 million man, and he was going to share that money with a fan in the grandstand. And it was horrific. I remember watching it here in the UK. I didn't go to bed really that night, because Dan was such a big figure, not just in
in American racing, but for those that knew him, that grew up around him, what he achieved in the UK before he went to America. You know, he is, we talked about it in the last break, the British drivers that go to America and embed themselves in the culture and become a bit like Dario has. You know, Dan was very much like that. And it pains me that he was a free agent, but what he achieved in the sport was utterly incredible. And then to marry, I think he married 2 years before he passed away, and to have the two, you know, his two young sons, the Indycar family and the Andretti family pulling around the Weldon family now to make it happen.
And of course, team owner Brian Hurton's son, Colton, you know very well, starting P2 today. You must be immensely proud of what he's doing.
100%. I think he was like one of my best mates growing up. We spent a lot of time together in 2015. It was my first year of single-seaters. A lot of good memories. And I know for Indianapolis, if there's any guy that will stay flat out at any time in the race when there's some doubt, it's Colton. He's a guy who, you know, he's on the limit a lot. He doesn't care about making contact with the wall or someone else or anything like that. He's not scared of anything. So he has a good shot because he's not afraid to back out. So.
But that's my memory of 2015, because I was in that car in order for a lot of the year, and he had two speeds, flat out and stop, and he pushed you really hard. And on his day,
he did.
He's fast.
As a driver, I'm quite a good driver in the high-speed corners, and then there's Colton, who just didn't care. You know, he took so many risks, didn't always pay out, but when he put it together, he was impressive.
Well, cannot wait. The anticipation is building all the time. Let's head back then to our friends at NBC. Well, it is wonderful to see diversity really improving in all forms of motorsport. How important is it? And Simona, I know, is no slouch. I mean, they take her challenge very seriously, don't they? Just tell us firstly a bit more about her, and then we'll talk more about Beretta Motorsport.
I mean, I was teammates with Danica Patrick, who obviously is part of the NBC coverage and is an IndyCar winner. And I think Simona's in the same stock. I mean, she is really fast, and you've only got to look at what she's achieved getting to the 500. But, you know, Roger Penske, it's part of the IndyCar commitment to diversity. And what I love about it is they've had 4 months to prepare. And I think 3 of the 7 going over the wall for the pit stops are women, and 2 of those have no motorsport experience. And I think that's what, and Roger said, you know, we could have trawled the globe for racers that are already involved, but we want to grow the net. We want to get people that have seen the sport but haven't been involved with it before. We want to capture their interest. And so they've had 4 months to prepare. They're now going to be in front of the world. The world's going to be watching those pit stops, everything. They made the show as well. Let's not forget, in qualifying, 2 of the cars didn't make the show. So Simona and Beretta have made the show, and that in itself is an incredible feat. And I'm looking forward to seeing how far they can get up the field, because I think they will move north.
I mean, you guys have the luxury of 2 on each wheel in Formula One. Yeah. Not so.
3, actually.
Well, 3, yeah. I mean, come on. Easy. It's a tough job, isn't it? Actually, I remember doing it with Mclaren, doing a pit stop with an all-female crew. And, I mean, it was great fun. But as you say, it's so important to have relatable role models on screen, not necessarily from a motorsport background, but showing young women out there that anything's possible. And this is very much, you know, an open invitation.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you know, you see more and more teams which are like this. We have the Richard Bill racing team in Le Mans as well. So it's cool to see it more coming together, and see more and more women coming through the ladder and coming into karting, coming into cars, and also being within Formula One. So it's good for the sport. You know, it's good for not just for what I do in Formula One, but to see it in IndyCar. And I think, like you said, sometimes it's the people who you don't think necessarily are the favourites and things like that, which will have the best chance to get to the top.
And ultimately, it's all about perception. So if people believe and see opportunities, they'll then see it as a viable career option.
So it's cool. And I think it's exciting. You know, when it all comes together, I think something like this, something created like this, can make something very exciting.
And it's worth saying there's 2 more women going over the wall further up the pit lane. So it's not just Beretta Motorsport as well.
Wonderful stuff. OK, let's head back to our colleagues at NBC. See, I'm a big fan of all of this, Lando, I have to say. Do you remember when we were out in the US and they kind of injected a bit of this into...
Yes, that was the year before I did it.
Yeah. but I loved it. It was like, you know, it reminds me a bit of our track parades.
Little bit.
But
a bit
actually,
more extravagant, isn't it?
Sorry again?
A bit more extravagant.
Yes, maybe a little bit. But how are the nerve levels at that stage? Still, you know, just under an hour to go until they're racing, but they come up and they're getting the roar of the crowd behind them, just a bit of adrenaline.
I think this bit's cool. Like, I think you're still relaxed enough and you're still in the, you know, just walking about kind of mood that it's maybe not started to build up just yet. But I think, you know, after this, you leave your families, you leave your kids, whatever. You then probably make your way to the track. I think that's when things start to build up more and more. So
get into a bit of a zone.
Exactly.
I think Scott McLaughlin tweeted, you know, we were eating lunch, so it must have been about 6 in the morning, and he tweeted like, you know, I'm up, so I can't sleep. I'm just going to get up.
I'm not surprised, in fairness. Let's talk a bit more about Scott Dixon, because he's had one win, but he probably deserves more. Not a great conversion rate from his poles.
Yeah, this year's his 4th pole. He's a 6-time champion, of course. He's only won the 500 once. And I say only once, for the majority of drivers, just winning this race is a dream come true. But for Scott, as I said, a 6-time champion, he led 100 laps last year, should have won it, shoulda, coulda, woulda. He's desperate to add more wins to his Indy 500 tally. I mean, some drivers just come here and, you know, they'll bang 3 wins out on the bounce, and others it's a bit harder. And for Scott, he just hasn't had the rub of the green when it counts. I mean, he's got a great car. I mean, Ganassi is so strong running into this race. So, like I said, he should have won it last year. Can he do it again? Can he do it this year?
It does feel, though, Lando, there are plenty of variables, and really the stars have to be aligned. You know, everything has to go right for you to take an Indy 500 win.
It does. 200 laps, you know, a lot of things can happen. You have the wind, you know, as well, and trying to get the setup side of it right. You start to lose the confidence throughout a run because the wind picks up or something like that. Then it can have a big effect, and it can be game over very quickly. So, like we said earlier, it's about bringing it to the end, making sure you're there with those 50 laps to go. But it's, you know, it's just a long race. You have to make sure you're there. You're in the right position coming into those laps. But until then, it's not taking too many risks.
I think he's done all his homework.
I have done. I'm ready for it.
He's ready for the race.
I can go out and do it.
OK, great stuff. Let's head back then across to our friends from NBC. So David Letterman's owned a team, Paul Newman's owned a team. We need more of this in Formula One, I think. You know, a bit of razzmatazz. Who would you like to see own a team in Formula One?
A character. I think someone funny, so I go like Kevin Hart. I'm a big fan of Kevin Hart. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah.
Just be cool having him there, you know. So.
I mean, you'd do what he says, wouldn't you?
You would. You wouldn't. I wouldn't argue with him. That's for sure. But I don't argue with Zach either. So.
No, I was going to say. Do what I'm told.
Yeah.
Takuma Sato, what a great racer, 44 years old. Ant Davidson's old teammate, is a name that we've known for many a year. And obviously last year's winner. How impressed have you been with him, and what can you expect from him today?
I think when Taku won the 500, there was not a more popular winner. And if we mentioned drivers embedding themselves in the American culture, Taku's done exactly that. I mean, he's a big star. I mean, obviously Honda put a lot of belief in him in terms of his career in Formula One. He's carried that success on in Indycar, I think. And we were talking about this off air. He started off at Carlin, as you just said, like yourself. Carlin is such a fabulous stable for developing young drivers. And you can tell us a bit more about that, the sort of nurturing effect that Trevor has. Like a father figure.
I mean, we've seen Colton already. So, like, you know, me and Colton grew up together. And Trev just wants the best. You know, Trevor just wants the best for any driver that comes into the team. And I don't know how many drivers on the grid now in Formula One have you know, most likely gone through Carlin. So it's a great team. They're one of the best teams, you know, probably in the UK and Europe and even a very good team in IndyCar. But it's how, yeah, like you said, how he nurtures, how Trevor, you know, wants to be part of it, and he helps the drivers, the engineers there. My engineer that I had really helped me become a better driver. You know, it wasn't just make the car go fast and then I hop in. They really helped me become a better driver, have more experience and that kind of thing, and know how to set up a car and stuff like that. So it's cool, and it's nice when you go to Carlin and you see the wall of the amount of drivers that they've had gone through the team.
Yeah, he's a hugely popular guy. There's no doubt about that.
And it's nice to see them on an international scale like Indycar. I mean, we've talked about how successful they've been in the feeder series, a bit like a championship football team if you're a football follower, but now they're in the top, you know, the top level. And for a one-car team, what they've done, I mean, don't look down the grid and think, oh, well, they're not that high up. I mean, they're a one-car outfit. What they've done to take on the might of Ganassi and Andretti and Penske, who have just so many cars, collecting data and running different run plans, what they've done at Carlin to get that car on the grid, and full credit to Max as well, is special.
And it's great to see the global reach of Indy 500, you know, this massive Japanese market that will be enjoying Sato's involvement in this. OK, let's head back then to our friends at NBC. Absolutely wonderful scenes. The atmosphere is practically palpable, even back here at MTC. It does make the hairs on the back of your neck go up, doesn't it?
It does. It's time to get ready. I'm sure now the nerves are starting to build up for the guys and the girl. And I think, yeah, this is the exciting part, you know, is when the drivers are getting in, when they're starting to think, okay, here we go. It's about to happen. So it's exciting for them. I feel like I'm missing out. I kind of,
you want to be there?
Watching a race. Not often
next best place to be is right here.
True, it is true. But yeah, I don't know. I hate watching races. I want to be in them, you know.
Sure.
So yeah, I feel like I'm missing out, but I'm excited for it.
Let's talk Penske because obviously they're rich history of success, but qualifying not great this time round. They haven't actually won a race out of 5 already taken part in this season. What do you think's happening with them at the moment, and do you think they'll come good?
I think it's most un-Penske-like, isn't it? Not to have won a race in 2021 and then to struggle. I mean, Will Power's struggles on bump day last Sunday were just unheard of.
He only just made the show.
Exactly, the captain looking on, and it was essentially 2 cars as well because Simona was down there. So that Paretta Autosport car is overseen by Penske, and you know, if you're aligning with a powerhouse and you've got Team Penske's setup sheets, it would make you sleep well at night. And then all of a sudden you turn up on qualifying day and it's just not happening. And I think for the powerhouses, be it Ganassi, Andretti, all Penske, and you know, I've missed out a whole host of names, but it's all down to that Honda Chevrolet battle. And there's no hiding away from the fact that Honda have a better car, especially when you turn the boost up to 1.5 bar in qualifying. That Honda has an advantage. Now, you could say the ECR cars were there. Ed Carpenter, they're the lead Chevys. They're flying the flag. They got to the Fast 9. So there's no excuse. You can see what the Chevy can do. So for Penske, I think there's work to be done, but they can hide behind the fact that when we come back down to the 1.3 bar of boost in the race, the Chevrolet and the Honda battle much more even, and I think you'll see the Penske cars move forward.
And just a quick word on those younger, inexperienced drivers, because the occasion could well be getting to them, but they've got to make sure that they don't go all out at the start.
It's true, but I think, you know, they're going to do it. You know, they're going to be putting their best efforts in, and I believe in them. I was that young guy, you know, so I see myself there, but I'm sure they'll be fine.
Absolutely. Right. Just 13 minutes to go. Let's head back.
Yeah,
So Roger Penske there with that famous command to start the engines. We are just moments away from the Indy 500, chaps. How are you feeling? I know I'm excited, and tell me your predictions.
Well, I think after that pomp and ceremony, the adrenaline coursing through your veins. I mean, I share Lando's echo his sentiments where he said you really feel like you're missing out in the studio. I mean, if you're not pumped as a driver, you never will be. But in terms of my predictions, my outside bet, Graham Rahal, Pato O'Ward. But I'm going to go for Colton Herta.
Mine, I mean, I got to stick with my boys, you know, JPM, Felix, and Pato. Pato, a guy similar to Colton. You know, he won one race already. Isn't afraid to get a bit sideways, get a bit loose in some of these corners. So he'll be going for it. But I got a lot of friends and mates in this as well. So I'll be supporting Annie. I don't have any favourites.
I am transfixed by this idea that the conditions are a leveller as well. So really, anything could happen, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think the big talking point going into this race is the conditions have changed. It's a lot cooler, so a lot of the teams are going to have trimmed out, and the wind direction's changed. We've got a tailwind into turn 1. You're normally having a tailwind into 3 and a crosswind through 2. So I think there's a few unknowns in this. Gear ratios and who's trimmed out and who's done what, I think will provide us with a few surprises.
OK, not long to go. The heart rate is going up by the second. The clear skies above Indianapolis. Let's head over to the commentary team. So some nervous scenes there for Will Power at the very start, but then made up some early places at the beginning of the race. Tom?
Yeah, I think obviously that was a pretty clean start. Rinus VeeKay taking the Chevy to the front. I don't think Chevrolet will want to lead too many laps. I mean, Colton Herta and Scott Dixon. I mean, I spoke to Colton in the build-up to this. He said that he just wanted to settle into second, third, and fourth. And you saw actually Scott Dixon, the first of the drivers to back out, let Colton lead, and now Colton letting Rinus VeeKay lead is the best for him. The big question mark is essentially what's the mileage going to look like? No one really knows. It's a bit like in Formula 1, Lando, when you can kind of guess what everyone's doing in practice, but you don't really know till the race. And I think now it's going to be really interesting. We saw Honda with the advantage last year. Have Chevrolet made strides forward? Can they match the fuel numbers that Honda are hitting? Because if they can't, and we go green, say for the first 32 laps, that's going to really hurt them later on in the race.
I think it's interesting, especially with the fuel saving, and this is one of the parts where the experience will really come into it, is like Scott Dixon now being in P3, saving the fuel and really just going for the longer run already.
And your friend Colton couldn't resist the opportunity to lead the race early doors, as you predicted, but sort of settling down a little bit now.
Yeah, I think they're running sort of 220 laps at the moment. I mean, 223 is a good lap, so they're settling into it and getting a flavour of the conditions. So you'll know now as a driver whether or not you're in good stead. So if you have too much drag on the car, if too many cars around you trimmed it out for the cooler conditions, then you're going to be really scuppered to pass. And it's the same for the gear stack. I mean, we saw a lot of teams and drivers changing the gear stack on carb day because they're not used to this tailwind into 1. So that's going to be interesting when we get on board and we see a move further back here. This is TK under a bit of pressure, isn't it? I think that's Helio Castroneves starting to put a move on TK. So Tony Kanaan, the two seasoned campaigners, so to speak, getting a bit dicey. We thought it was going to be the young guns.
So Lando, what do you make of it so far?
What do I make of it? I think it's a tricky one. I think for the guys who are further back, you want to get up there, but for the guys who are leading, they just want to get into a nice rhythm. So these are the times where they just want to get into that rhythm and go from there.
Bedding it in, back to the commentary team. OK then, Tom, well, we're seeing some green flag running here. What does that mean in terms of strategy?
Well, I think it's fascinating, this element of the race, because we've heard the commentators talking about, right, what does this look like in terms of the fuel strategy? Well, you're going to run probably 32 laps green here on a good run. You might not go all the way to that window on the first stop because you don't want to run out of fuel early doors here at the 500. You might see further back some of the runners come in early, so they might start stopping short to try and get off strategy, because as you can see, it's hard to pass at this stage, so they want to get off strategy. But as Jack Harvey said to me, if you keep selling your yourself short, you're going to have to pay the piper at some stage. And what they mean by that is you might end up with an extra stop later on in the race, and that's going to really hurt you. The interesting dynamic now is they're letting VK run. So that Chevrolet at the front is pushing the air. You run about 1.5 gallons more fuel around the 500 pushing the air as you do in the tow. So, I mean, Colton Herta and Scott Dixon will be sitting pretty with a smile on their face at the moment, because Rinus VeeKay doing all the hard work, and that Chevrolet might not be as good as the Honda in terms of the fuel mileage. Pushing the air, it's definitely not going to be as good as the Honda. So it'll be interesting to see how early we see that ECR car in, if at all. I mean, that's the million-dollar question. I mean, can Chevrolet beat Honda on the fuel mileage? Can Rinus VeeKay hit his numbers out front? I'll be very much surprised. But that's the sort of dynamic playing out at this stage. About 6 pit stops over the course of this 500-mile race.
And Lando, in terms of driver mindset, Scott Dixon talked a lot about how mentally tough this is, on a par with the Monaco Grand Prix, I'm sure. What will they be doing now in terms of getting to a bit of a groove?
Well, I think I've just seen Dixon already. He's changing the roll bars, changing the weight jacket. They have a few things as a driver you can do to just shift the balance of the car a little bit, to make it a little bit more aggressive if you maybe want to pass, but also if you want to do the opposite, make it a bit more stable, give yourself that confidence, save the tyres as well. So a lot of it is still settling into this rhythm, but it's, you also want to be in that position ready for these pit stops, which are going to be coming up shortly.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Lando. Thank you, Tom. Let's get back to the action then with our team of friends in the NBC commentary box. Well, I can hardly catch my breath, gents. I can't believe the amount of drama that we've seen already. Scott Dixon running out of fuel there, and actually Steph Wilson's crash, just really bad timing for him.
As I said before, it's double jeopardy here. It's snakes and ladders, essentially, the Indy 500. So sometimes you hit a ladder, sometimes you hit a snake. I mean, we talked about the conversion rate for Scott Dixon. He's there and thereabout. I mean, his car has been so fast the last couple of weeks, and here he is in trouble already just because of that innocuous timing of Stephen Wilson's yellow. And for some of the runners, I thought Colton Herta was in the box seat, having run 33 laps there under green. We saw VeeKay struggle. We thought that was going to be the case. He enjoyed leading the 500, but will drop back because he pitted after 31. But the big winners here, the likes of Helio Castroneves, Alex Palou, Pato O'Ward, they've all gone 38 laps, and this is going to be really, really important. 2 former winners, though, in trouble because Alexander Rossi was the other car, and we don't really know what's wrong with that sort of Andretti Honda at the moment, but it's, again, struggling to restart. So the Hondas with the heat soak, once they've stalled it, not enjoying life. But for these drivers, Lando, I mean, you've geared up to big events, to be in trouble this early on. I mean, it's not over, I will say that, because this is 500 miles of racing, but it must be such a sinking feeling. You've got to work hard to compose yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tough because sometimes it can be your fault, I think with like Stephen Wilson there, in the end of the day, you kind of have to put that blame on you, sadly, but also then for Rossi and Dixon, through no fault of their own, just because of a car issue, you can be put out the race, or it can make your race a lot tougher. So, yeah, not ideal. It's tough, but there's still a long race. They can still make up these places. They can still unlap themselves and so on. So, they still got a long race ahead of them to make it up.
But time to perfection for 2 of the McLaren boys, you'd have to say. It worked out well. Yeah,
very good. Perfect pit stops. So we'll see where they can get up to.
So what will they be thinking right now, Tom? What will they need to do to recover from this?
Well, I'm just looking at the timing screens. 31st place for Alexander Rossi, 32nd for Scott Dixon. He's made his 2 stops now. Obviously, Stephen Wilson out at the race, but there's so much now that they need to do to get back, and they can do it. It's a long race, but they're going to have to work the strategy now. This is down to luck.
OK, let's head back then to our president. Oh, no, we'll stay with us for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So have you enjoyed it so far, Lando?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's cool. It's always nice when something happens, not because of anyone's misfortune, but a bit of action, you know, a bit of chaos every now and then shakes things up a lot. But it's good. Like Dixon was just unlucky there to have to pit when he did. Couldn't box because of the crash. But then you have the guys who went even further, like the Mclaren boys and Pato and Felix, who were able to get up to lap 37 or 38 before they pit. So good. I think everyone's now on quite different strategies, different fuel mileages and tyres and stuff. So hopefully the next stint, the next fuel load can shake things up.
It really does feel like sliding door moments defines this race.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm just, again, looking at the timing screens. Connor Daly up into third place. That's 2 ECR cars, 2 Chevrolets now up at the front. Connor Daly with the fastest haircut in the Indy 500. If you haven't seen it, I mean, we were talking about it before we came on air. I'm surprised you've not gone for that, Lando, this year.
Mullet, no. I don't feel like I can pull that off, to be honest.
OK, let's head back to the NBC commentary team.
Strategy.
OK, so lap 44, things really turned on their head at lap 41, Tom. How do they go back to salvage something from this race?
Well, like I said...
Dixon and Alexander Rossi.
It's a game of snakes and ladders, so their day's not done, but they're going to need some luck. So we've seen everything turn upside down for a handful of drivers 30-odd laps into this race. It's a 200-lap race, and this might happen again. It might happen more than once. So don't be fooled. This is not game over, but they've got some serious work to do. And we saw Rossi there talking to Dixon about, you know, we got to work together, that kind of stuff. I mean, Rossi's no fool, and if you've watched the 500 over the last few years, you know that if there's a big move to be pulled, you know, Rossi's going to be right up there going for overtake of the race. So, you know, he will be full send now. They've got to try and make something happen. Was that a Penske car?
I think it was Power.
Will Power.
Well, I tell you what, it has helped the Arrow McLaren SP driver Juan Pablo Montoya, because he's currently now running in 13th.
Ooh.
That's good news.
Made up a lot of places then, so I think it's good, you know. Like we said at the start, it's about being in it at the very end. But slowly creeping your way up, making your way up, and I think JPM did say, you know, qualifying wasn't his strong suit. He wasn't the kind of guy that would take those risks and afford losing the rear of the car and things like that. So he said he was in it for the long one, and on, you know, race day today. So it's going to be good, and I think he's making his way up, which is exactly what he said he's going to do.
Those cars look so cool, don't they?
They do look cool. I just get annoyed every time I watch it because I feel like I really want to just go and drive again. So it's nice. They're very different to, I guess, what I drive and things like that. And it's an oval as well, which is completely different to what I'm used to. So
great stuff. Thanks, Lando. Thanks, Tom. Let's head back to the NBC commentary team. So Connor Daly flying there from 19th up to first, leading the race. Just talk us through what's worked so well for him today, Tom.
Well, he locked in, didn't he? Landed on that ladder, same as Colton Herta. You know, he pitted on lap 33 and took advantage of the yellow. But what's interesting for me here is the 2 Chevrolets at the front. I mean, the last non-Penske Chevrolet win, and these are both ECR cars, Ed Carpenter cars, was 2013. But we touched also on the rising temperatures. So air temperature not so warm here, but as Lando will know, air temperature and track temperature, 2 different things. And the sun is beating down on that in Indianapolis Speedway, and that's going to bring the track temperature right up. If you bring the track temperature up, you're going to have to, the rule of thumb is you're going to have downforce. So if any of these teams have trimmed out, as that Pato Award, Pato Award on the charge there, I think he's passing Takuma Sato. But if any of these runners have trimmed out off the back of their carb day performance because they were looking at, it was much cloudier there, much cooler temperatures. So if they have, they're going to really struggle, because as the track temperature rises, you're going to really want downforce. So we're going to see, interestingly, which teams have got it right and which teams haven't.
So what is that?
Sorry, here's Rossi on the move up into turn 1. He's not got that done. So that was pretty close. So I think it's Dalton Kellett that he's battling away with. Or,
yeah, he's up 8 places, and Scott Dixon just the 2.
Or was that Max Chilton that I think that was Chilton that he was battling away with. Either way, he didn't get the move done. So you've got 2 spotters here on the roof of turn 1 and on the roof of turn 3. It's quite rare. So the spotter on the roof of turn 1 will cover turns 1 and 2, and the spotter on the roof of turn 3 will cover 3 and 4. So the driver's constantly having different voices in their ear as well as the strategist. That's hard work, Lando. You know that in Formula 1. It's hard to listen and drive.
It is. I think some drivers love it, to be honest. You know, some drivers like having all this information, some don't. I'm more of a fan of not having as much info, but you still need to know some things. But also this is a lot more for, you know, it's hard to know if you're clear from cars alongside you and things like that. So they get a lot more information on their car position and people when you're 3 wide, 4 wide, which you're very rarely ever in Formula 1.
Well, look, please do tweet us your questions at Natalie Pinkman. Use the hashtag SkyIndy500. Let us know what you want the boys to answer. And in the meantime, let's head back to the NBC commentary team. And that's Kudos alone leading 16 laps of this famous race, Tom. Now we hear about the commentators talk about the tools that they have in the car. Just explain what is at the driver's disposal.
Yeah, so the drivers will be working really hard on the tools throughout the stint, especially Connor Daly. We heard there the commentary team saying he's trimmed it out after the carb day, and I thought that might be the case. Now, with the track temperatures rising, he's going to have to work really hard. Now, they've got the weight jacker, so that adds weight to the left front, or by expanding right rear. It's an expanding right rear cylinder, so if you add weight to the left front, you're curing understeer. If you're adding weight to the right front, you're giving understeer. So it's like a weight going across the front axle if you want. And they use that a lot in qualifying, but they'll also use it a lot in the race. So that's understeer. For the oversteer, they've got the roll bar adjusters, so you can stiffen the front and the rear bars. They've got down on their left-hand side of the cockpit, they've got an adjuster. So if you watch his hat, it's difficult to see with the aero screen now, but with the shadow on it. But he'll be working probably the weight jacker. But yeah, so down by the right-hand side of the cockpit is the front roll bar, as we see Rinus VeeKay in. Now that's not uncommon. You know, he was we talked about this off air, so he was the first to pit, so he pushed all of that air in the first stint. He's done himself short there. He's going to have to work hard in the pack to try and get this fuel mileage back now, and he's in again. He's the first stopper, and I think we'll see this for the next sort of third of the race unless he can improve his mileage.
And Lando, I find it fascinating that the drivers are having to make these adjustments as they race. I mean, it's a lot to contend with, isn't it? Is it done purely on feel, data? What is it about?
It'll be purely feel. You know, they've done a lot of testing, so they know what every little step will do to the car, how it affects it. And like I said, you can use it for both things. You can use it to try come back through the pack, and you know, you can make the car a bit more nervous, a bit more aggressive with the front end, try and cure some of the understeer you get from following other cars. But then, like we heard Connor say, he's struggling a bit with the rear of the car. He's got a bit too much front end, and he's trying to maybe go a bit stiffer with the front end, change the roll jacket to the weight jacket to make a bit more understeer, make himself have a bit more confidence in the rear of the car. So you can use it for both ways, but it's purely a feel thing.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Lando, for now. Let's head back then to our NBC friends. So plenty more drama, Lando and Tom. Pato O'Ward, you have to say, is looking great, flying there up in P3, Lando. What do you make of that?
He is. I'm loving it. I think, you know, they've done a good job. Pit stops have been fast. He went very long in the first stint, so this look like it's paying off. He's on slightly fresher tyres, a little bit more fuel, but I think the fresher tyres is having the bigger effect at the moment. Put himself into third. You know, I think he easily could have got to the front there if he wanted to, but I think he judged it well. He's trying to save some fuel, and he's just in that position that's a nice position to be in, far enough up the order that you're in contention, but far enough back in third place that you can save fuel, and you know, you're confident you can go long still.
Now, talking of great pit stops, you have to say the all-female crew of Beretta did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, they did a fantastic job. They've been training hard for 4 months. They got in the race. They did everything that you thought they were going to do, everything that they've done up until this moment, and they're not going to drop the ball. They've been spot on. They got into the race, and, you know, Simona's repaying them with her hard work at the wheel as well, up to 28th now. The interesting dynamic for me here is, for all the money on Honda, the 3 Chevrolets now are at the front. Now, they've got to work together. They absolutely have to work together now. They've worked their way to the front. They've got a fabulous advantage. Track position is so important with these aero kits. It's not easy to pass. We see the temperature rising here, so the hotter it gets, the harder it is going to be to pass, and we're seeing that now. And we got you know, something like a 15-wheeler for the race lead, but no one can get through. So now the Chevys are there. They've got to work hard to get that fuel mileage and make sure they don't surrender that opportunity to Colton Herta and Hunter Ray and Palou and Castro Neves and Sato, who are behind, because the Hondas are coming.
OK, great stuff. Thanks, Tom. Keep your questions coming in using the hashtag SkyIndy500. We've had one from Fraser Metcalf asking Lando, would you rather do the Indy 500 or Le Mans?
Would I rather do... I would love to do both. I think, to start with, I would do Le Mans first. You know, I did the 24 hours of Daytona a few years ago. I love that, and I feel more ready to kind of have a go at something like that. Indy 500 is definitely something further down the line in many years to come. So both, but first would be 24 hour.
Wonderful stuff. My money's on you. My money's on you doing it. OK, great stuff. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lando. Let's head back across to the NBC guys in the commentary box. So, Tom, we're edging towards the halfway stage of the race. It's the home hero, Connor Daly, leading. What have you made of it so far?
Yeah, it's flown by, hasn't it? We're on for a really quick race at this rate. But as Nelly in my ears said, the producer, it's almost cautions breed cautions. And as soon as we get another caution, if we do get one, I think we're going to see people get pretty racy. I mean, look at that snake down the back straight into turn 3. It's pretty much 20-odd cars at the same pace. This was the fastest ever average speed in terms of the spread across the field going into this race. So it's so close. Everyone looks good. The commentators picked up on the fact that a couple of these cars are going to be able to do it in 3 stops now if we stay green, and 2 that arguably probably won't be, that'll be hoping for a green, are Connor Daly and Rinus VeeKay, first and second. It's 28 laps since Connor Daly last stopped, 31 since Rinus VeeKay. So I think they're just out of that window for 3 stops. Now that is going to be really difficult. And so I said earlier, Rinus VeeKay having to try and get back into the fuel window in terms of his mileage. He's going to have to work even harder now, especially Connor. Connor pushing this air now is not good. It looks great now, but you've got to be at the front of that snake come the checker flag.
OK, keep your questions coming in on Twitter using the hashtag SkyIndy500. Cosmic Yak asks you, Lando, what do you make of Grosjean's start to IndyCar?
I think it's been great, better than I expected. More, you know, it's his first time in America on, you know, with the Indy guys, and I didn't expect him maybe to do quite as well as he done, but only I think he's surpassed my expectations. Not because I ever didn't think anything of him. I have a huge amount of respect for him, but.
He adapted well.
I was just going to interrupt. Newgarden into pit lane there, yeah. 22 laps since his last stop, and we talked about it off air that I said I haven't seen anyone going off strategy at the moment. We've got 20-odd cars just sitting behind each other. Someone's going to have to go off strategy. Someone's going to have to roll the dice. Doesn't surprise me that it's Joseph Newgarden. Penske here trying something different. They've got to get out of the traffic. They've got to get to the front of a group that's off strategy and see where that plays out. So Newgarden now going off strategy, the first to do it. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Great stuff. We'll keep your questions coming in using that hashtag SkyIndy500. Great to hear from you. Keep them coming. Let's head back to our commentators now then at NBC. So Pato Ward, Arrow McLaren SP driver, leading. How would that feel at this stage of the race? We're like 109, 110 laps in, Lando. Quite a lot of pressure, I'd say. He's only 21 years old.
He is. I don't think it will be affecting him at all. I think, you know, he's got his first win under his belt. He knows what he has to do, especially on an oval. And he might be this, you know, fun, charismatic guy, but he's also a very smart guy. He knows how to play the proper game too. So from what we've seen already, you know, he went very long in the first stint, long in the second stint, and he's positioned very well now with a good strategy on fuel. So he's doing well. Still a very long way to go, side by side here. But you know, I think he's in a perfect position at the moment to be doing the best job that he can. So things are looking good.
So Tom, we're talking a lot about fuel management, and we've heard them say hit a fuel number. What's that about?
Well, interestingly, talking about the fuel number, they've just turned the wick up. So a lot of the drivers doing their best laps last time around. I mean, some of them pushing up into the 222, 223 margin. So they're obviously getting really light now. They're coming to the end of their stint. I mean, a lot of the runners that have done that have done 35, 34 laps in. So the fuel number you're talking about is they're all looking. So Danica touched on it. They were running really quite slowly for a large percentage of the race there to make sure they all got into that 3-lap window. So after this stop, 2 to go basically. And once they have got into that window, then they can turn the wick back up and we can get a bit racy again. I mean, this race now, it'll be interesting to see. We're at the 113 lap mark. It'll be interesting to see as we get to the 150, how it plays out, who can pass, and whether or not the temperatures allow for that. Montoya into the pits, and that's Palou as well. He looks really good in the Ganassi car, by the way, Palou. We haven't seen a lot of him, but he's sitting really pretty with Helio Castroneves as well.
OK, great stuff. Well, the challenges are mounting, and we will be back with Lando and Tom very shortly. In the meantime, let's head back to the commentary team. Well, Tom, Lando, dramatic scenes then, and we have to say, hugely grateful for no one actually being seriously injured here. Let's start then back at the pit stop, and clearly that left rear not secured properly. Yeah.
It must have been a sinking feeling for that mechanic, Lando. I mean, he knows when that car's gone that he's not got that on. Interestingly, and we haven't heard anything, but was there any radio traffic between the wall and Graham Rahal? Because he didn't back off an inch there. And to see a car go up the banking coming out, I mean, that's, you know, we've seen that before with horrific consequences. And then to see that tyre out on the circuit, I mean, it didn't hit the aero screen of Conor Daly, but we both flinched when we saw his onboard.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've seen some bad incidents like this with the tyres flying around and so on. So it was a lucky escape for Conor, which is nice to see, and but also devastating for Graham, because he was in a perfect position with his strategy, with the fuel, the tyres. You know, he was coming out where? He was coming out within the top 10 at least here. So through no fault of his own, like we spoke about earlier, he's out of the race. So a bit, well, massively frustrating, I'm sure, for him. I think, you know, we saw how annoyed he was because things were going so well for him. But lucky he's got out okay. But it's going to be a tough one because it's not going well.
Potentially race-winning car, you'd have to say. You know, he had a lot of hope. Look at the energy in that tyre as it's bouncing down, and as you say, glanced across Conor Daly's car, and he has sustained damage as a result.
Yeah, this is the onboard now. I mean, you just from a driving perspective, this makes you feel sick. I mean, the energy of which that tyre hits that car, I mean, that's frightening.
But great to see both walking away unscathed, although clearly very disappointed. OK, let's head back then to our commentators at NBC. OK, guys, well, Fascinating to see how things can really be turned on its head. You know, you look at Scott Dixon back on the lead lap, you know, when we thought all was lost for his race early on.
Yeah, Scott Dixon, 26th now, still with plenty of work to do. I mean, there's a few movers and shakers here. I still think this is going to hurt Rinus VeeKay and... well, it would have hurt Connor Daly, but he's dropped down after a slow pit stop. Last time, we didn't see that. But interestingly, for Joseph Newgarden, this is helping him. So it's not the solution, but Joseph Newgarden, 23 laps since his last stop, in 5th place in the Penske car. He needs another, so we say cautions breed cautions. If he gets another caution at the restart, then he is really starting to be back in business. That massive hole in the front of that ECR car is surely not going to help the aerodynamics of Connor Daly. I mean, he's not having the best of days since that difficult stop. He has dropped down the order. OK, he's still 9th, but I think he's going to be slow in a straight line with that hole in the front of the car.
And that will surely play on your mind as a driver.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's going to get some reassurance from the team. You know, like in Formula One, we have photographers to see if there's anything ever damaged with the car and debris and things like that. So I'm sure they have it here as well. The team reassuring that maybe everything's fine, or I don't know if it was a hole, if it was just purely rubber marks from the tyre itself. So as long as the team say, you know, everything's good to go, maybe take him a lap to get back into it, but then he gains that confidence, and from 9th, you know, he's still in a very good position to score highly and still go for the win in the end of the race.
We're back racing again very soon. Let's head back to our commentators at NBC. So Castroneves looking great for that record equaling 4th win. Who else for you is really at play here?
Well, are we going to see Spider-Man climb the fence, or Pato O'Ward, ninja hands as they call him in the US? And that's because he's always soaring away at the wheel, less so on the super speedways, of course. But Castroneves, I mean, you'd be a brave person to bet against him. Palou, it's no surprise that he's pushed to the front. I mean, we said about 30-odd laps ago that, you know, he was diligently going about his business, and that Ganassi car looks really good. So this is about to get dicey now, because we're 134 laps through. Give it another 30 laps, and certainly as we push through the next pit stop sequence, if we have another yellow, you just saw how racy it was through the restart last time around. But you know, there is still an element of fuel save that has to go on here. You can hear Castroneves there just lift and coast. He's under no pressure to pass Palou, and he's dropping back a little bit just to give himself some free air, because obviously the closer he gets to that car, the more his balance will struggle. Listen to the onboard now. Look, he's just lifting nicely. I mean, he is in full Sunday drive mode there. And what a nice feeling to be. He's obviously got a great car underneath him, Lando.
He does. He's looking good. He's looking strong. I mean, we just saw him come through Pato, and when he, you know, puts his foot down and he you know, he actually starts pushing and using full throttle, using the fuel. He looks very fast, and he has done all day. So I think he's in a good shape. These top 3 are looking like they're all in a good shape. With Palou maybe looking like he's using a bit more fuel, but
that's very much the dynamic. We heard that rhetoric coming into this race. If you get to the front of any of the groups, the top 3 here, you know, all the cars we've seen at the front look pretty good. It's when you get back into that dirty air that it's a real struggle. I think Newgarden's in the pit, so he's the only runner that's really running off strategy. He can still do it if he gets another long yellow.
Yeah, and it felt like a very different race after that restart, didn't it, Lando? 2 Penske's running in the top 8, and it's all to play for in the sort of final quarter of this race. Exciting stuff. Let's get back to our commentators. OK, 55 laps to go, Tom, and you're really starting to see experience showing with the past winners creeping up the field. Castroneves, obviously, P2, and then you've got Sato, P7, and Montoya, P8. This is when you're really kind of relying on all that past knowledge.
Yeah, and your strategist. This is where, if you own a race team or you're a strategist on the wall for the 500, you start to bite your nails and get a few more grey hairs. I mean, we just heard the commentary team there talking about Scott Dixon maybe being able to do it in one. I mean, Joseph Newgarden is really in that bracket. I mean, he's the one that could. I mean, he's not to be discounted. I know he's running around in 28th place, but if you got a yellow here, a long yellow, I mean, he could really push to the front if he picks up at the right time. So there's a couple of strange dynamics in the field that I know we're focusing on the front of the field with our pictures here, but there's a few undercurrents, a few stories starting to develop, but it's all circumstantial. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it's snakes and ladders. So who's going to hit a ladder and who's going to hit a snake in the final 50 laps to go.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, that's what keeps us on the edge of our seats, Lando, is that no one's really out of the mix, and you can't say that about Formula One.
I mean, anything can always happen. I think Palou here trying to get past Newgarden for positions. So.
And that's the key, Lando. Sorry. Newgarden has to stay... Sorry to interrupt. Newgarden has to stay in front of Palou here. He absolutely has to stay in front.
Yeah, I think, like we said, overtaking can happen in this, but track position often can help, and Palou's into box now. So, yeah, there's still a long way to go, but things can always happen, and we can still have cautions, you can still have problems with cars. You don't really know where everyone's at with the fuel and the strategy. Like Palou's had to box probably now, because he's been leading for so long, a good 2 or 3 laps earlier than some of the other cars behind him. So it's difficult. Now he can go out and push again, but you still have these people sometimes you don't see on the TV, which are saving fuel and holding back. But towards the end of the race, they can get the car right, they can put on those fresh tyres and push to the end, and you can really see them coming through.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, Lando. Let's head back to our commentators at NBC. Well, Tom, you said that the reason you love this race so very much is you just cannot make a prediction, even in the closing stages. And Lando, Pato O'Ward in with a good chance of winning this race. How will Zach be feeling right now? You know him well.
He is he's going to be very nervous, I think. It's been a lot of focus on Formula One, and for him, IndyCar's little side project for him, and he still has a bit of focus on that. But I think after having our podium in Monaco last week, there's nothing more that he would love now than to top it off with a win in Indy. So, I mean, everyone in the top 10 is going to be nervous. They're all in good positions. But a lot of it's down to the drivers still at this point, and the strategists with the fuel saving and knowing when to box. 1 lap too early, it can cost a race win. 1 lap too late can cost a race win. So it's nerve-wracking, not just for Zach, but for all the team bosses, for the drivers, for the strategists, and so on. I'm
always intrigued by this, Tom. Whose decision is it? The drivers, the strategists? A team decision, a collaboration ultimately, but it's feel a lot of the time, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, obviously they'll have that conversation, and the more experienced drivers, they've been here, they will have their feedback, and the drivers do have a certain say that they will stamp their authority when they need to. Look who's leading this race, though, Scott Dixon, talking about authority. But what I love about this race is, I'm sitting here looking at the timing screen, and you've got to go all the way through this. It's so easy to miss something now, especially as we get down to the sharp end. They're running sort of 220, 221, 22 laps with 39 to go. That's a good pace. They're not going to be able to run 40 laps at that sort of pace. So it's going to be interesting now. I just can't see this going green all the way through to the checkered. And if we do have a caution, I mean, it's going to open up so many people's races. It's going to be fascinating. You can't rely on that, can you? No, you can't rely on that. So, we're seeing now Palou pushing the air, and he's had Castroneves crawling all over the back of him, and Pato O'Ward sitting very pretty. I mean, Pato O'Ward looks really good in 4th place. Fantastic stuff. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Lando. For now, let's head back to our commentators at NBC.
And I got to tell you, what a turnaround for this team. Arrow Schmidt, Mclaren, they went home with Fernando Alonso, didn't make the field, and now they've got a chance at winning this race with Pato O'Ward.
Sam Schmidt is here, Rick Peterson is here,
and Zach Brown, the CEO of McLaren Racing. We know that Lando Norris, who finished on the podium in Monaco last week, is in their studio in the McLaren Technology Centre back in the UK. Coverage via Sky Sports F1 there. Hope you're enjoying it, Lando. This is a phenomenal race with 45 to go.
So Simona de Silvestro having problems there. And, you know, really, it is all to play for. The speed's really ramping up now, Tom. And Colton Herta now pitting. Not long now till they all have to take their final pit stop.
Yeah, a lot of the drivers running their fastest laps. We've seen Palou up at around 2:25, so that's really quick. I mean, that's quicker than last year. So I think now that the interesting dynamic is if there's a yellow, and I say if, you got Newgarden and Scott Dixon standing, sort of sitting pretty in terms of their track position, but we're going to see quite a few of... I mean, the real risk for everyone staying out now is if there is a caution. When do you weigh up track position, but also covering off those that have pitted slightly earlier than you? Because, like I said, if there is a caution, they're going to filter to the front, and you're not going to have enough time to get back to the front in terms of laps led. But you've got to, you know, you've got to weigh up where you are as well in the traffic. So I think it's everything that we'd hoped for. I know that there's not been a huge amount of passing, but in terms of the strategy and in terms of the bigger picture here, it's just playing out fantastically.
And the pressure really ramping up on the drivers here. How is it in terms of levels of intensity, Lando?
It's getting tricky. I think now as a driver, you're wanting to be up near those top few positions. You want to know that you're within a chance of doing something, or even if you have to overtake 3, 4, 5 cars, you want to know you're in that area, you're in that ballpark to go for a win. I think that was Castroneves in for his final stop as well. So a lot of it's now just pushing flat out, starting to take a few more of those risks.
And also, he's covering off there. Look at all these cars. They don't necessarily have to stop. Is that Hunter Ray going too deep? Yeah, Hunter Ray will certainly get a penalty there. But it's interesting. These cars are covering off the likes of Newgarden and Dixon, because if there is a caution, as everyone goes for gold, then they're going to be hung out to dry, so to speak. So this is really interesting. All the cars now starting to come in and vie for that track position, and then hopefully it'll be a dash to the checkered flag. There's Palou, who's looked brilliant in that Chip Ganassi all evening/afternoon.
Edging towards the business end of this race, it is all to play for. Back to the commentators. Tension is building by the second. Castroneves, Palou, and O'Ward, the 3 protagonists. Who's your money on, Lando?
I mean, I have to go Pato, don't I?
Of course you do.
I do. I think, I don't know, he looks like he's dropping off, not a lot, but just a little bit, hanging back, I hope. But it seems like at this moment it's out of these 3, and I want to stick with Pato. You know, I think maybe he's just saying a bit of tyres, a little bit of fuel, and then he's going to push hard to the end.
It goes back to the mileage. Have Chevrolet got what Honda have in their armoury? We're starting to see now people show their muscles, and as Castroneves has a big run on Palou coming out of 4. So we've got the tailwind now into 1. He's not going to get it done. So Palou, second time at Indianapolis. Castroneves vying to be the 4-time winner on the 30th anniversary of Rick Mears, who won 30 years ago with a broken foot. Now, Rick Mears used to be Helio Castroneves' spotter, but now Castroneves, first time not in a Penske car at Indy in the Mayor Shank, run by Andretti. Rick Mears is helping Scott McLaughlin, albeit not as a spotter this time around. But wouldn't that be a magical story? But I tell you what, this is going to be hard to get around, because the Ganassi car we know is good, and this is where we have the young pretender Palou and Castroneves to the outside. He's going to make this stick in. Yeah, Palou just tucks in, doesn't make it difficult. So, yeah. Pick the meat off the bones of this one. I mean, Castroneves now with track position. This is going to go right the way down to the wire. We've got 18 laps to go. I mean, he made that look easy. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be for Castroneves.
I think they must be still doing a little bit of fuel saving. Pato looks good, but I think not too far behind. We have Pagino as well in lovely, bright fluorescent yellow car as well. So if these guys start squabbling a little bit too much, Pagenaud's not far behind and could catch on.
And how difficult is that to manage as a driver at the latter stages of a race?
The squabbling part?
No, I mean the fuel saving, if that indeed is a factor.
It is. Now it's very tough because, you know, you maybe see that guy ahead, maybe he has to do a little bit less, and it starts to edge away a little bit, and the last thing you want to be doing at this point is fuel saving. So it's tricky, but I think they're at a point now where they can almost push flat out to the end.
Great stuff. Let's head back to our commentary team from NBC. Well, jubilant scenes there, and he should be milking every minute of this. Absolutely fantastic to see Helio Castroneves ink his name into the history books. Apologies there for any fruity language you may have heard. As you can imagine, emotions running high. Apologies, though, if anyone was offended by that. Let's have a look then at that crucial overtake with 3 laps from the end on Alex Palou.
Well, what an incredible race this was on board with Castroneves. You can see Palou just moving to the inside, and this is really late into turn 1. I mean, we said it off air. It was really, really late that he got that move done, and Palou did well, actually, because it takes a lot of the front of the air away from his car when Castroneves came across the front of him. And then we saw Castroneves catching this train, and the back markers we thought were going to play a huge part in the finish of this 105th Indy 500. Palou's eyes must have lit up, dollar signs in his eyes, but he just never quite got the run, Lando, on that last lap.
Yeah, I think this was, you know, his opportunity to try and do something and get Castroneves back, but I think Castroneves put the car exactly where he had to. He got the exits and the runs out of turns 2 and turn 4 exactly like he had to do. So, you know, that's his experience. And like you said, his first win in Indy 500 was when Palou was 4 years old.
Yeah, 4 years old.
It shows his experience, and, you know, he knew exactly what he had to do in order to win today's race.
And you really hit a surge in volume from the crowd there. Very popular winner here today.
Oh, you know, I could say there's no one more popular. Obviously, the fans have their favourites. I mean, Helio, when he went to the front, the roar was massive. When he hit the front, you just heard the crowd erupt. And he's the Spider-Man, you know, the driver that we've become accustomed to seeing climb the fence. He came here in 2001, won his first 500. He came back the year after, doubled up. And now he's a 4-time winner. And, you know, it's what, 12 years since his last Indy 500 win?
Yeah, he won in 2009, and then obviously this year making it a 4th, record equaling 4th title of the Indycar.
And I'm 39. I thought I was old, but, you know, 46 years of age, incredible.
Just wonderful to see, and everyone rushing to give him the congratulations. 46 years old, and as you can see, an absolute crowd pleaser. This moment, he's going to remember this for a very long time.
His first race away from Penske. Here he is kissing the bricks. You know, who's going to kiss the bricks? And Helio, I mean, every racing driver thinks that they're in for a shout. But the 500 is such a difficult one to win.
His first win for Meyer Shank, and you saw there, Lando, his teammate Jack Harvey go and congratulate him. It must have been a huge amount for the team as well.
It does. You know, they're not one of the biggest teams. They have a bit of a partnership with Andretti as well, so they're one of the teams, like they're an underdog team. If they can bring it to Penske and bring it to Andretti, bring it to Ganassi, then they're doing an extremely good job. And today, you know, he proved that he's not even racing in this season of IndyCar. He's just come for this one race, and I think that's what makes it even more special.
Yeah, it's the team's first ever win in IndyCar.
Yeah.
So to win the 500, your first ever win, and it's the 500. I mean, that's what dreams are made of, and that's what this race is all about. It's like a fairy tale, really. It's
really
magical.
Is. OK, let's get back then to our colleagues at NBC for more reaction to the historic win.
Just shows how much you can close in.
Well, wonderful scenes there as Helio Castroneves celebrates His Indy 500 win 20 years after his first win on his debut back in 2001. And you could just see, Tom, how much it meant to him. His voice breaking when he referenced his parents back in Brazil, because ultimately this is what it's all about. It's a whole family's commitment to the sport. You know, there's always a huge backstory, a huge amount of sacrifice on behalf of everyone to get him to this place.
Yeah, I think we look at these magical moments, but it's 12 years since his last Indy 500 win. So to put that into context, there's a lot of lows in that time period. So it's a magical moment for him now, but the adversity and the journey that he's been on, but also the love affair that he has with the 500. I mean, you could see all of that emotion brimming to the top. And I think, you know, for the series, it would have been great to have seen a young driver win, yes, but for IndyCar, for the Indy 500, to have Helio Castroneves there climbing the fence, I think it's headline stuff. He's a big star in America, having won Dancing with the Stars and that kind of stuff. You know, he'll get on the private jet tonight, go to New York, be on all the breakfast shows next week. It's a big moment for the sport as well as it is for him.
It's funny, you normally do the reality TV shows once your career is completely done, but in many ways, Lando, he thought it was. I mean, this was only his second race of the year. It's almost as big a surprise to him as it is to everyone.
You know, I think he obviously still wants to be in IndyCar, but like they said, he got dropped by Penske to allow the space for these younger drivers coming through. But today he proved to the younger generation, you know, that they've still got it, and experience plays a huge part in racing, and it can help a driver so much. So he proved, to his generation and for the years he's been racing in IndyCar, how valuable he is, how big of a fans guy he is, and that, you know, you heard the fans cheering for him. It was pretty awesome.
And I think the oxymoron there is that he wouldn't have won this race if he was in a Penske car. I mean, Penske and Chevrolet just weren't at the races over the last couple of weeks, and for him to go to Meyershank, to be with Honda and to build a new relationship, a team that's never won a race before, to take them to the front, I think that's his biggest win ever, quite frankly.
Let's talk a bit about your teammates. Pato O'Ward actually looked fantastic at various stages, coming into the latter stages of the race. Is that your phone?
Yes.
Surely not.
It's meant to be on silent.
It's just lining you up for next year's race. But how impressed were you with Pato? Because you know, ultimately he drove a great race.
He did. I think from what we saw, you know, it just didn't look like they had quite the pace in the end of the race. You know, the Chevys always looked like they were struggling just a little bit. Pagenaud came on strong at the end with some slightly better tyres, and it looked like Pato tried to make the most of that traffic on the last lap. But around turn 2, he pushed a bit too much, got a bit close with the wall and had to lift off. So then Pagenaud had the run. But, you know, I think Pato would have gone for the win. He would never have settled for third, never would have settled for second. So he had to do everything he could. So I don't think third or fourth would have made a difference for him. But they all seemed to do a good job, and Pato was there for that whole race. You know, he was always in that top 3, especially when it mattered.
But I think they're building, and I know. Yeah. That won't be a consolation, but if you look at the journey that Arrow McLaren have been on, then this is an exciting moment. I mean, it's only going to get better for them, I think.
And Montoya in 9th, how will he reflect on that?
I mean, race, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously he would have wanted to have won this race. He came to the 500 to win the race, didn't he? But it's a tough old event, and I think. Deep down, we know JPM, he's brash. After qualifying, he wasn't as brash as he normally is. So I think deep down, he knew that maybe they didn't have the pace. And if they were going to win it, it would be on strategy. They didn't really go off strategy. So I think he'd be pleased with a top 10. But I don't think they were...
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because podium finishes in Formula One clearly carry more kudos and weight than... I'm saying this because you've got podium in Monaco. But they do, clearly, this is all out, isn't it? It's all or nothing, really, for the Indy 500.
Yeah, it's just that one event, you know, it's win or nothing. And there's a few events in the world which are like that, but for a motor race, podiums are podiums. And, I mean, I'm definitely not taking anything away from having a third place, but... it still means a lot to a driver if it's third place. Whereas the Indy 500, you don't want to say I finished third in Indy 500. You want to be able to say that I won it. So it's a shame. You know, any driver who finishes second or third, and like Alex drove an exceptional race, he almost had it and held on from Helio. But he's young. You know, he's got what 20 more years until he's the age of Helio. So he still has many more opportunities to do again.
I mean, they mentioned it then. Helio mentioned it. Tom Brady at 43. Winning, and Phil Mickelson, oldest major winner at 50, and hit 46. I mean, you know, there is life in the old dog yet. It's great to see them coming back still with the same appetite, same desire to win.
Yeah, these young guns.
Back off.
Lando being one
Pretenders
of them.
to the throne.
Just going to have to work a bit harder, aren't they? And actually, you know, we can touch on that. It's not just the old guard versus the young guard. They do have something about them, and they tend to bring it to the table in those moments where it really counts.
Yeah.
How impressive is that, and how much of a challenge is that when you're a young driver going up against that?
It's a hard thing because you don't know what it's like having all of that experience. But it's something already. It's something you never want to use as an excuse. You never want to go, yeah, I don't have the experience, well, I didn't achieve this or that. And you know, Alex isn't going to want to admit, you know, if I had this bit more experience, I would have been here, or I would have positioned the car differently and things like that. So it's frustrating because you want to beat those guys, but there's just some things which you can't just go and learn every day. You know, there are things which do take time, and then eventually it will pay off. So it goes both ways. You have that youth, that fear factor. You know, Alex was probably happier to risk a bit more and things like that, whereas Helio just knew exactly where to place the car, where he wanted to be at every pit stop and things like that, and that's just the experience part of it.
And I guess you do need to be patient, and that's when you grow as a driver. Fast, frenetic, furious, all the way through. I'm sure, though, it did whet your appetite, didn't it?
It did, but yeah. I'm happy with the job I'm doing, you know. I'm happy driving around Monaco and driving around these awesome tracks. I'm enjoying it. I still have all my focus here. So maybe one day it will shift over to this race.
Well, your immediate focus has to be for next weekend, because we are going to be racing on the streets of Baku in Azerbaijan, the Windy City. And you can see all the Sky coverage from Friday on that. It's such an incredible track, a street circuit, but nothing like Monaco. It's got that long straight that you can enjoy, the ancient city. It looks stunning, it's windy. You see some of the challenges that the boys in the Indy 500 faced today, and girl, indeed. But it's been such a pleasure to be here at MTC, so a massive thank you to Mclaren, and thank you to you, Lando. Have you enjoyed it?
No worries, yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot. My first time kind of doing something like this. Got work to do, you know. I'm not.
Well, turn your phone off.
I don't have exactly, you know.
Schoolboy error.
I don't have as much info as Tom, and I'm not as knowledgeable, but I'm getting there. So
it's been wonderful, and Tom, as ever, thank you so much for your knowledge and insight. It's been a genuine pleasure for you all, and thank you to you at home for joining us. Indy 500 winner Helio Castroneves has taken a fourth title to ink his name into the history books forevermore. And he joins the likes of Rick Mears, AJ Foyt and Al Unasenia in doing so. Congratulations, Castroneves. Let the milk be yours.
Sky Sports F1. Feel it all.